is going on, everybody? Travis Fowler Harkrider back with another edition of Tights and Turnbuckles, so you know what time it is. Let's talk pro wrestling because we've got a few cool things to talk about, and honestly, I'm going to do something a little bit different on this week's episode because there's been a lot of talk about WrestleMania this week. Mainly about the ticket prices because, oh my god, have you seen the price tag on these tickets for Mania this year? This is insane. Like, I don't know how the average person is going to be able to afford any kind of ticket at WrestleMania, much less a front row ticket. But honestly, I kind of feel that way with a lot of entertainment anyway. As a side note, I actually looked up concert tickets for a favorite band of mine that's actually going to be in my area or nearby. And the cheapest tickets, of course, were for the nosebleeds. But even the nosebleeds started at like around $100. And that's insane. Like, I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm not looking to pay even triple-digit figures for some nosebleed seats. No, I'm looking to have a decent time at whatever show I go to. So I don't know if concerts are going to be a thing that I can attend anymore. I don't know if wrestling events are going to be something I'll be able to attend, if this is an omen of what's to come with ticket prices. But we'll talk about WrestleMania and what I think might be in store because there was a match that I wanted to talk about a little bit last week that I had forgotten to mention in there. We did do a little bit of Mania talk, and we'll continue with that on the match that I do think should be set for Mania. And then I actually also want to throw it back to a retro situation because yours truly has been watching some old WCW, and I had a little bit of a realization hit me, so stay tuned for that. But real quick, let's kind of run down some of the activities from this past week. On Monday Night Raw, we saw continuation of the Liv, Dom, and Rhea story. I still, for some reason, just have this feeling that Rhea's going to be involved in this crown jewel situation. Y'all have already heard me talk about I'm not really a big fan of this whole crown jewel thing to begin with, strictly because I don't like the idea of a champion versus champion, and the reason for that is because you're already going to basically program the audience to think there's going to be one of these champions that's less than the other, and the point of the brand split is always to have two guys that actually have not just the notoriety, not just the in-ring ability, but they are supposed to represent that specific brand. So this whole brand warfare with the champions, the women's and the men's world titles is just, I don't know, it's just not my thing, even though the promo that happened on SmackDown, which we'll talk about here in just a second, was actually wonderful. I enjoyed the whole segment. But back on Raw, I still do think somehow Rhea's going to get involved in this whole champion versus champion Nia Jax Liv Morgan match with Crown Jewel, whether it be in the actual match or what I thought could potentially happen is what we saw with Survivor Series a couple of years in a row when AJ became WWE champion and faced Brock Lesnar, and then we saw the very next year a similar situation, only Daniel Bryan was the one who won the WWE title just days before and went on to face Brock Lesnar. And by the way, that was one of those matches that's absolutely great to watch, but man, it was uncomfortable to watch for the first 10 minutes or so. My wife was watching with me, and at the time we had been dating, I think, either just a few months in or maybe we had already hit the year, but I think it was honestly the former of the two. And she had watched Total Divas a little bit, so she was invested in Bryan's story, and she knew about the neck injury and his concussion symptoms and all that. So it even made her cringe watching Lesnar and Bryan to the point where she was like, yeah, that's it. We're just going to watch a guy die today. That's how it's going to go. And that's how it felt. But I digress and move back on to Raw. We saw the Wyatt Six and Final Testament starting their feud, which I am very interested to see how this goes. And It disappoints me that Bray isn't here at this point because from a report that came out last week, all the members of the Wyatt Six faction were all members handpicked by Bray Wyatt. He wanted to work with all of them to create this faction, and it would have been really cool to see where this rivalry would have gone had Bray still been with us. Not to say that Bo Dallas doing the Uncle Howdy gimmick is not working, because it is, and at least for me it is, and I think the fans have been enjoying it. It was a great, smart move for them to make the Wyatt Six faces, because I don't think there was any way they were going to get booed. So putting them up against this Final Testament that's in desperate need of something to catapult them into a relevancy, I think was a great decision. This is going to be a great Warfare faction feud, so I look forward to seeing where this goes. The main event, which was the main focal point of Raw, was the Intercontinental title rematch of Braun Breaker and Jey Uso. And they pulled out yet another phenomenal matchup, but most people like myself could see where things were going. And sure enough, Jey Uso getting screwed by the new bloodline, Braun Breaker getting the IC title back around his waist, Jey Uso being screwed by his younger brother along with the Tongans and Jacob Fatu, and that led to what most people felt was coming on SmackDown, which we'll talk about in just a bit. Then you look at NXT on Tuesday. That was the go-home show for tonight's Halloween Havoc. I can't wait to see what they do. That is, honestly, that pay-per-view just holds such a special place for me. I had told you I was watching some WCW over this past week, and it always makes me smile when I get to a Halloween Havoc event, just because I enjoyed the name as a kid. I still do. I love that they've brought it back and put it with the NXT brand, and that is the premium live event taking place tonight for NXT. Trick Williams and Ethan Page did their promo battle, which I don't know. I just wasn't really sold on that. The women's division in NXT is probably the healthiest women's division of any roster currently. And to add to that, they debuted Zaraya, I think is how they're going to pronounce it, the former Delta from Australia. She made an appearance at the very end of the NXT show, which was brilliantly done. Of course, the main match for the women's division tonight is going to be the tag team warfare of Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez against the newcomers of Stephanie Vaquer and Julia, so that'll be a fun watch. Then you get over to AEW, and I actually had the opportunity to call in to Bully Ray's Busted Open After Dark show on AEW Dynamite Wednesday night. And I gotta say that it was one of the, I don't want to call it worst, but it definitely wasn't a good Dynamite. They started off with ladder warfare for the Ring of Honor Championship, and Chris Jericho getting a second ROH title. I still understand why they put the title on Jericho, because they're trying to do some kind of relevancy for Ring of Honor. But honestly, at this point, I really do feel that Ring of Honor is just a dead brand. And I hate saying that, but there's no real life to it. I know they have Athena, who's been the Ring of Honor Women's Champion, I think, what is it, over 500 days now? Something to that extent. Jericho is a worldwide mainstream name, so it brings that notoriety, but there's already too much damage, I feel like, that's been done to ROH that really it doesn't matter what you do at this moment. Maybe if eventually they do a brand split for AEW and ROH, possibly that could be some rejuvenation for that brand, but as of this moment, I just don't see any kind of help that would bring any kind of viewership to Ring of Honor right now. So Jericho winning the ladder warfare. I will give props to Jericho at a man in his 50s doing the things he was doing, and against Mark Briscoe of all people. Hats off to Jericho for that. Then you move over to the Kyle Fletcher promo, which was actually a really good promo. And a lot of people like myself are like, well, that kind of sucks for his United Kingdom partner, or United Empire, excuse me. I wonder what will happen with that team when he comes back, because right now, like a lot of people have said, and I agree, the singles run of Kyle Fletcher has been absolutely awesome. So this whole feud that we're going to see between him and Will Ospreay should be a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing where everything goes on that. The biggest issue I had on Dynamite this week was the Camille match, because she had a competitive match against a woman that Mercedes Moné just faced last week in Queen Aminata, and the match itself wasn't great either. But the fact that there was a competitive match for Camille, who, as everybody can see, is supposed to be Diesel to Mercedes Moné's Shawn Michaels, and it now just isn't effective. Camille has had a competitive match, and now she faces Chris Statlander next week on the Fright Night Dynamite, which, sure, it'll be a good match, but now, well, what's the point of Camille? Camille is supposed to be your heavy. Camille is supposed to be the one, yes, who, quote, takes your bullets for you, but more importantly than that, she has the size, and she had the whole bodyguard-like China image over at NWA, where she was that for Nick Aldis, of all people. And then you bring her in over here to AEW to hopefully do the same with Moné, but now you've lost the allure with Camille. With all the exposure that they have given to her, I feel like now it's just a lost cause. And it sucks to say that because I'm a Camille fan. Just, I don't see how you can recover her character at this point. But maybe that'll change. Hopefully it will, but I just don't see where you're going to be able to make me believe that she's a threat anymore, especially because, as some people have also pointed out, she's backed down a couple times from actually helping Moné, like actually taking bullets but selling it and running away from fights. Like, I understand that if you're a Mercedes, but as Camille's character, she again is supposed to be like the bodyguard, so I don't think she's really supposed to do that. So I don't know. It's disappointing, and maybe they'll pull the nose up on this plane, but right now I just don't see that taking place. Shelton Benjamin, though, who I didn't get a chance to talk about last week, so I'm going to do so now. A guy like Shelton Benjamin, whose potential was never really fully capitalized on in WWE. I 100% believe that. Already 2 weeks into his AEW run, and now coming up in week 3 with his match at Swerve Strickland, should be a lot of fun, and I think we're going to see Bobby Lashley debut as well. He looks phenomenal. He looks like he's put on size. He is moving like he's still in his 20s, like back, like it's 2004. Benjamin looks amazing in-ring wise. His promos and his presence already have done exactly what you need them to do. MVP calling him the standard of excellence, I think, is a great new nickname for him. And he's just showing what a lot of us already knew beforehand, and really wish he would have had some kind of big title opportunity back in those early 2000s. Shelton Benjamin is going to be somebody to watch very closely going into 2025. The main event of AEW, it is what it is. Honestly, I was more interested in the aftermath that took place with the BCC bringing Chuck Taylor out and doing that final spot. I actually had one complaint when I saw that too, because once Moxley or Claudio did the stomp on the chair, Wheeler was still in the ring, mind you, and Orange Cassidy had just slid in. They were within striking range of each other, and Orange, who just saw one of his best friends, who his career's unfortunately been cut short, he got attacked hardcore and then just stood there when he could have gone after Wheeler, who was right there, or at least make the effort so that Wheeler could pan out. So it may have been a minor detail, but it was one that I thought was very important. In that same segment, we saw Private Party and Young Bucks get another match set between the two, and that will be a win the titles or split up situation. They've been teasing Stokely Hathaway getting in the ear of one member of Private Party. I can't honestly tell you which one it is offhand, but I think they are wanting to actually make this breakup come to fruition, so I honestly don't see Private Party beating the Young Bucks on this next go around. Then you move forward. TNA did its go-home show for Bound for Glory, which Bound for Glory took place last night. And I didn't get a chance to watch Impact this week, and I haven't seen Bound for Glory just yet. But for those that are unaware, Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry had their championship match. but interference from both Frankie Kazarian and John Layfield, JBL himself, led to Nick Nemeth retaining the TNA Championship. Frankie Kazarian, who played special referee earlier in the night, also won the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal, and he tried to do the cash in, but that's when we first saw the JBL appearance, and he stopped Kazarian from doing so. I think Kazarian's going to be the one to take that championship off of Nemeth, and I still believe Hendry will be the one that gets a TNA title around his waist, but he'll do so by beating Kazarian as opposed to another face in Nick Nemeth. Then you saw the women's championship between Jordynne Grace and Masha Slamovich, and Masha Slamovich defeating Jordynne Grace. I, again, haven't watched any of the pay-per-view. I plan on doing that sometime this week. Then you saw Full Metal Mayhem with the Hardys getting the TNA Tag Team Championships, and from the photos I've seen, there was some Jeff Hardy artwork throughout the whole match, which was unique in and of itself, but I look forward to actually getting a chance to watch the match and seeing how it looked on camera. It looked like there was a whole lot of business there. But the Hardys are tag team champions again in 2024. I saw somebody talk about how 25 years ago, I believe they said to the date, the Hardys won the ladder match between them and Edge and Christian that really solidified both teams and put them on the map at No Mercy 99. And then 25 years later, again, I believe they said to the day exactly, the Hardys won the TNA tag team titles. So 25 years of the Hardys going strong. Props to Matt and Jeff especially, who's been doing a lot better with his sobriety this time around, and it looks like he's having a lot more fun. So that's a great thing to see in pro wrestling overall. Now let's switch to SmackDown and talk about the awesomeness that was SmackDown, because Motor City Machine Guns were the focus of basically the last hour of that show. They had a good match with DIY. They won the match with DIY and then immediately went into the tag title match with the GOD representation of the Bloodline. And then not only did they beat DIY, they beat the GOD and became the WWE Tag Team Champions in just their third match on that main roster. Absolutely amazing. I can't say enough how happy I was to see that. Sabin and Shelley, the Motor City Machine Guns, had always been a favorite tag team of mine back in the 2000s and even into the early 2010s. Seeing them reunite over these last couple of years in TNA and still going strong, and now in WWE, and they're your tag team champions. Mwah, chef's kiss all the way around. And that didn't happen unless you saw the interference take place from Jey Uso, which is his get back for the Bloodline, costing him the Intercontinental title. And unfortunately, I have seen some spoilers that we're not going to talk about them now, clearly, but next week's SmackDown is going to be one that people are going to love, and honestly, I look forward to seeing the whole thing take place on TV. I may have already seen the photos and a little bit of the fan footage of what takes place, but this is just leading right into Survivor Series, and I can't wait to see it. The rubber match between Carmelo Hayes and Andrade was actually pretty good, but I kind of figured that there was going to be some kind of chicanery with LA Knight being in that match, and sure enough, that's exactly what took place, and that has now led to the Crown Jewel Triple Threat U.S. title match, LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade. I wouldn't be surprised if Carmelo takes that championship next week. Then the promo face-off between Gunter and Cody Rhodes was absolute great business. Gunter is showing again, anybody that doesn't think he can deliver a promo, you're dead wrong. And then having Cody counter back with what he did and then go on the offense early with Gunter, I think actually was a smart ploy to do. It lured Ludwig Kaiser to come in, and then Randy Orton came in for the save. Orton, who actually is going to get his match with Kevin Owens, coming in to save Cody, though, was a great move, and that sets up the tag team match for next week of Ludwig Kaiser and Gunter taking on Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. That should be fun. And, man, Crown Jewel is going to be one of those shows that I don't know if I'll actually watch it as it takes place because I will be out of town on the day that it does air, but It might be one of those sleeper shows because right now I don't really have a whole lot of interest in it, but there are some matches that could be fun. Again, while I haven't been a fan of the whole Crown Jewel Championship stipulation, it might be a match that ends up being really good, especially between Rhodes and Gunter, who have some history specifically in the Royal Rumble where they even mentioned it on SmackDown that 2 years in a row, Cody was the one who eliminated Gunter from the Royal Rumble match. So there is some history between these two champions, and the match itself is going to be solid. So I do look forward to seeing how that match plays out. But let's leave all the current stuff there and let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania. We're not going to again talk about the ticket prices, but I will talk about some of the stuff that's been mentioned about the card. There was a report coming out that Early's reports are saying The Rock is going to face both Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns in a triple threat match for the undisputed WWE title, and I don't think that would be a smart move. At this point, the Bloodline Civil War is taking place, and I don't think you need to put Roman and Rock in a title match for that whole feud to really feel any more important than what it is. We had the match announced basically earlier this year, but we know what took place and why we got what we should have gotten, and I was fully on board with the Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns match taking place like it should have been. I was not going to be happy for Rock and Roman to take place this year because I didn't really think that was the story that needed to be completed first, and a lot of people didn't. So I'm glad that that didn't happen. But now it makes all the sense to do it. Rock is a heel, whereas before he was going to be the face going up against Roman, and Roman's gotten too much of fan support that now you've got a heel Rock and a face Roman. That is going to be an awesome matchup to see between the two, and I really hope that's the WrestleMania match we get. I know had it on deck this past WrestleMania, but 41 in Vegas, Roman Reigns versus Rock is what should be there. But what about Cody? Because people have talked about Cody Rhodes. I had even said something last week, and I do firmly believe that Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton will be a program to have, but I don't think that's the WrestleMania program. For me, since John Cena is going to be competing in his last WrestleMania this upcoming year, I do believe that as the guy who was the face of that company for the better part of 10 years, there's only one match for him to have, and I think it should be against arguably the new face of WWE. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes is a money match right now, and I think that would be the route to go for Cody at Mania. You could build a great program between Cena and Rhodes, and there would be a lot of story that you could go in from there. You could talk about Cena being a fan of Dusty back in the day. You can talk about how Cody used to ride up and down the roads with Cena when he first got into the main roster of WWE and what he learned from John there. John Cena could play off of all that and build a really wonderful backstory that could lead to a personal issue between the two because of that. Hey, yeah, you're the up-and-comer, but you still got to face me, and you're not proven until you face Big Match John kind of thing. I could see that being the story. And interestingly enough, yes, you could have it for the WWE Championship, but I don't think it will be. I personally don't think Cody will be champion going into Mania 41. And at this point, I don't think he needs the title in order for that to be something of a big-time match. I honestly think this feud between Rhodes and Kevin Owens is going to lead to KO becoming the WWE champion. And I could totally see Kevin Owens going into a Mania title match against Sami Zayn. Yeah. And why do I feel that? Because it ties right into the Bloodline story and Kevin Owens' issues with the Bloodline. As we know, Sami Zayn was the honorary Uce for the original Bloodline. He even went as far as kicking his best friend in the face at the War Games match that gave the Bloodline the win. And then at WrestleMania and at the Royal Rumble, first off, it was the Rumble where we saw Zayn turn his back on the bloodline and basically try to get back in the good graces of Kevin Owens. You fast forward to Mania, the two reunited, and they were the ones that took the titles, the tag titles, from the Usos. So Kevin Owens could easily claim, hey, what are you doing helping out the bloodline now? And why do you want to even do that, considering all of the issues that you had with them and that I've had with them, and I'm supposed to be your best friend? The same type of story I think he's building with Cody, you could do with Sami Zayn, and it would go much deeper because of their history, dating all the way back to Owens' debut in NXT. Plus, you want to give Sami a big-time feud on a big-time stage? Why not have him win the Royal Rumble as well this year to set up that Zayn-Owens match? It would put Zayn over on SmackDown, Owens versus Zayn. You could even have Kevin Owens attack Sami prior to the Royal Rumble, not necessarily the match itself, but leading into the Rumble, and it would make a whole lot of sense. So those are just 3 matches that I personally would want to see. Rock and Roman, which a lot of people want to see. Rhodes versus Cena, no title needs to be on the line there. And Sami versus Kevin for the WWE title. I think those 3 matches right there could be a lot of fun and have a great impact on this 2-night WrestleMania card. Of course, I think most people are hoping for, if everything goes like we're hoping it does and nobody gets injured this time around, Punk Rollins can be on that same card, as I think it would be a fun match to see. That could be for the world title. Don't ask me how they get there, but I think it could, at some point or time, get to a point where we have the world title on the line between the two, since that was the route we were looking to go this past year with Mania. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens, because we don't really know until after Saturday night's main event in December, going into Royal Rumble season, how all that's going to pan out. Maybe the WrestleMania card will start to take a little shape around that time. We know it definitely will after the Royal Rumble match itself. But let's leave WrestleMania there and let's talk about WCW for a second, because I've been rewatching a lot of the 1998 pay-per-views, and I gotta say, I've seen a lot of similarities between WCW and AEW, and it isn't for a good reason. A lot of the gripe for AEW is them putting on, sure, great matches, but they're just matches for the sake of a match, with not a whole lot of story or build. I see a lot of that in some of these WCW pay-per-views that I've watched. Just as an example, one match was Rick Martel versus Booker T. Why was it there? Oh, just because Martel had a good match at some point in the lead up to his TV title match. He became a TV title champion at one point as well. Booker T took the title back off of him. But that was just one example. Of course, the cruiserweights always put on a good match, and I'm not saying that there wasn't story there for some of these pay-per-views, because there was. Like, DDP and Raven had a good story going there. Macho Man and Hulk Hogan had a 2 or 3 month program that didn't pay off at a pay-per-view. It was at a following Nitro, but Savage was the one who defeated Sting, and that was where really the NWO Wolfpack started to take shape, was Savage becoming champion, and then Hollywood Hogan screwing Randy Savage the following night to get the title back. But that's where I think AEW needs to learn from WCW. And yes, overall, AEW being an alternative product and presenting themselves as more of a sports-oriented wrestling show, yeah, is great for that audience. But even Brian Alvarez has said, as part of Wrestling Observer newsletter, you are only appealing to one segment of the audience, and eventually that segment audience is not going to really draw you what you need. You're not really building your company. You have to start bringing in more of a casual viewer if you want to succeed as a wrestling company. I think that's where WCW started to fail in the latter part of 98, and then especially into 99, and 2000 was just the nosedive that killed everybody in that plane crash and eventually led to the sale of WCW in 01. I don't want to see AEW go anywhere. It's great that we have two big companies stateside now, so I'm really hoping that someone can get it to Tony Khan's ear and begin to correct some of these big issues, and AEW sticks around for many, many more years to come, much like TNA has stuck around, and much like WWE has become the juggernaut that it is. Because honestly, the more success wrestling promotions have, the better it is for the fans, and the better it is for the workers involved as well. Guys, that's what I got for you this week. What did you think about wrestling this past week? And are you looking forward to NXT's Halloween Havoc tonight? What about Crown Jewel next weekend? And did you enjoy Bound for Glory? What do you think about WrestleMania? What are your predictions for the WrestleMania card? Sound off on all those topics and any others in those comments below. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and have hit that bell notification so you're notified when a new video is uploaded to the channel. And make sure you're following us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. I may not be here next weekend because I'm going to go and spend some time with some family down south. So not next week, but the following week. I will see you guys then. So y'all take care and continue to love pro wrestling.